Oh my God, I'm getting emotional. I did not think I was gonna cry in this video. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Hamali and I'm basically like your internet big sis. I share advice, tell stories, and talk about all the things that nobody wants to talk about. If you hear some scraping noises in the background, it's because my camera is right next to a window and there are people shoveling their snow right now. So yeah, I'm so sorry if that's annoying. Anyways, I recently put up a question box on my Instagram story asking you guys what you're struggling with so I could give you advice, and I had someone respond with standing up to my parents. So I thought I'd make a full video on it because I know that's something a lot of people struggle with. I know I did at one point in my life as well. If you've been following along with my content for a while now, you know that I openly talk about butting heads with my parents when I was younger. It was something I really struggled with up until I would say my late 20s. And there were many times that I did stand up to my parents, but it was often done in a really rude and disrespectful way, and my delivery never helped the situation. I think sometimes the message would get across to them, but it left us feeling hurt, misunderstood, and angry, because here I am frustrated, yelling at my parents, and sometimes saying things that again were rude and disrespectful, and then there my parents were never trying to be open-minded and also saying things that were very hurtful to me. And I think the first time I effectively stood up to my parents and actually got my message through was the time I moved out of my house. Basically back in 2019, I was moving out before I got married to my now husband. We were engaged at the time, but our wedding was going to be 8 months after we had moved out. And obviously for my parents, that was a big no-no because that went against all Indian traditions and cultures. Of course, a woman should not be moving out before she gets married, especially not moving out with a man. I knew moving out before marriage was going to be a huge issue for my parents, so I really tried to ease them into it. I actually told them a year in advance before I was moving out that I was gonna, just to give them time to really process. And it was funny because when I told them, they were pretty okay with it. They weren't all gung-ho for it, but they weren't super against it either. My dad even tried to help me house hunt, but then me and my husband had decided that we were just gonna move into the investment property that he had bought a few years earlier. So that's why I thought my parents were not super okay with it, but understood what was going to happen, because why else would you help me house hunt? You know what I mean? Anyways, as we moved closer to the date, my parents totally switched up on me and they pretended like I hadn't told them this information that I was moving out, and they acted like they were shocked. And this has happened to me before in many other situations where I've told them what I'm gonna do. They're kind of okay with it, or they may not fully be on board with it, but they won't really say anything. And then the moment it actually starts happening and coming into fruition, they switch up and they're just oh, you didn't tell me this. Why are you doing this? Blah, 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 blah. And then just giving me a hard time about it. And so yeah, for me, the process of moving out, which in my eyes should have been happy and exciting, turned into a really stressful event because my parents were now giving me a really hard time about it and making me feel really guilty and ashamed for leaving. And it led to conversations, sometimes even shouting matches, where we would end up feeling very angry and resentful against each other. My parents kept expressing, what will people say? It's gonna look so bad, blah, 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 blah. I continued to be strong-willed about it and just stand my ground and let them know that, this is happening, whether you like it or not. I'm moving out. Either you can come help me or I'm just gonna do it on my own. And I'm really happy I stood my ground, but at the same time, making that decision and really putting my foot down was so hard because I felt extremely guilty about it. I knew I was disappointing my parents and putting them in a position where they felt I'm disrespecting the culture and the traditions, and maybe people in society are going to be talking about them and me, and obviously that would make them feel hurt, but this was the right decision for me and I had to see it through. And no one ever talks about that side of just feeling super guilty about standing up for yourself and putting yourself first, because it's very easy to be yeah, you need to set a boundary and do things for yourself and whatever, but there is so much guilt and shame that can come from that. And it's important we give ourselves grace for that, because oftentimes if we are going against our parents' will, we are breaking cycles and breaking free from generational trauma. And that's a very difficult task on its own. It's a lonely path and it's not an easy path. So the feelings of guilt and shame are going to naturally come up, and it's important that you kind of just feel them and let them move through you. It's just a reminder that you really do care about your family, but you're also doing the best you can with the cards you've been dealt. Anyways, the fact that I was leaving the house on bad terms just kind of ate at me alive. I felt, again, so guilty and ashamed of my actions that I wanted to do something to kind of mend the relationship. So I decided to write my parents a letter expressing to them how I felt about this whole situation. I don't know how I came up with that idea. I think at the time I was like super into journaling. And also I remember my Reiki master telling me to write stuff down and then maybe burn it as a way of like releasing my emotions. So I thought maybe like writing a letter to my parents would be helpful to kind of release all those emotions and let them know how I truly felt without being interrupted, because I knew if I actually talked to them in person and tried to express my emotions, like that wasn't gonna go well. I was gonna get really flustered and angry and possibly be interrupted by them too. And I think the thought of even just like saying how I felt to them felt so incredibly cringe and just like weird, because it's not how I grew up and it's not something my family did. And I'm so happy I did this because it really did change my relationship with them drastically. So let me tell you what I wrote in it. Basically, I let them know that I needed them to learn how to let me go and allow me to be an adult and make my own decisions. I mentioned how I've never given them any serious reason to really worry about me or be concerned about me moving out on my own, because I've never done anything that was irresponsible that should make them feel like they can't trust me, especially in recent years as I grew into adulthood and I was in my mid to late 20s. So that should be enough proof that they should be able to trust me to move out on my own and, you know, start this new chapter in my life. I also really emphasized that they needed to trust that they did a good job parenting me. And that's what I really emphasized on in the entire letter, was how good of parents they were. I went on to talk about all the life lessons they've taught me and the good values and morals that they instilled in me. Oh God. Fuck. There's shit just everywhere. I was not expecting this to happen. There's literally product everywhere. That's so annoying. Anyways, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, I even broke it down by parent and let them know exactly the things that they had taught me. So for example, my mom taught me how to love deeply and wholeheartedly and how important it is to keep a relationship with your family. She also taught me how to be very kind and caring and how to keep my inner child alive, which I think is a super important skill, especially as you grow up and the world kind of gets to you and you can get jaded and things get hard. It's important to really know how to continue to be kind and caring throughout that and to keep that childlike wonder and optimism thriving. My dad, on the other hand, taught me to be independent and strong-willed. He always encouraged me to help people out. I think that's a big reason why I talk so openly and candidly about my experiences on the internet, because I know my stories will help people feel seen and heard and maybe guide them in the right direction. You know, I do get a lot of hate for some of the things that I say, and people attack my character and my soul and my experiences, but I do it anyways because my dad always taught me to help people in need, and I feel like this is my way of helping people. He also taught me to never be afraid to ask for help. You know, he would force me to go up to employees at stores or at restaurants and ask for exactly what I needed. So when I got older, I had no problem asking for help when I needed it, and I think that's gotten me so much further in life, especially when it came to my mental health, because it made me not afraid to ask for help and seek out assistance when I knew I wasn't doing well mentally. Those are just a few examples of the things I said. There was obviously more, but the point of it was to really let my parents know and emphasize how much they were great parents and that they should trust that they've raised this amazing adult that is now capable of doing things on her own. I let them know that they should learn to let me go and that I would always keep coming back because they're my parents and I love them. Oh my God, I'm getting emotional. But yeah, I just wanted them to know that I wasn't going to leave them and that I didn't hate them and that I truly did love them. But it was just frustrating talking to them because we just had different ideas of how we wanted to live our lives. I really made sure to emphasize how much I love them as well within this letter because I think they just needed to hear it, especially with how much we would fight and how, again, strong-willed I was. Like, I just never budged, and we would get into these like shouting matches, and yeah, I would just say some really nasty things, again, because I was young. I didn't know how to communicate. I hadn't gone to therapy at this point, so I had a lot of like mixed feelings. So I just really wanted to know that even though we went through all of that together, that I really did love them and appreciate them, and I was so grateful for them. I did not think I was gonna cry in this video. I'm like trying so hard not to ruin my makeup. Anyways, I tucked that letter under their pillow and then I basically left. The first day I moved out, I messaged them that day and let them know that there was a letter under their pillow. And then later that night, I called my parents and asked them if they had read it. I just remember I was bawling my eyes out the first night I moved out because there was just such mixed emotions. I felt so guilty, but also a sense of relief that I had done it, and I was just excited to start this new chapter of my life. But obviously I felt so bad for leaving on, you know, not the best terms. And I just wanted to know if they read the letter and they knew how much I loved them. And they had a very brown parent reaction to the whole situation. All they said was, yeah, thanks, it was nice, and left it to that and didn't really go back to that conversation. I don't know what I was expecting them to say to it, really. Like, I mean, my parents have never talked to me about their feelings their entire life. So I don't know why I thought this moment was gonna change all of it. Like, obviously I felt really sad and upset that they didn't have a bigger reaction to it or say more. But looking back at it, like, I just know they didn't have the capacity to say anything, because expressing their emotions is not something they ever had to do or were even allowed to do. But that night, because of their reaction, I didn't think it really had an impact on them or that it really mattered that I said any of this stuff. And that kind of hurt a little bit, but in my head, I was also like, you know what, I said my part, I'm at peace with it, and I'm just glad I did that. Fast forward to about a year after that moment, I had started therapy, and I remember bringing up this situation to my therapist. I was just like, yeah, I don't think it really affected them. I think they cared more about what other people were going to think and not about me, and they just wanted to control me, blah, blah, blah. And she asked me, how do you think they felt when you moved out? And again, I repeated, I think they were just so worried about what other people thought that they were angry at me for putting them in that position. And I also think that they were super scared that I was going to get pregnant out of wedlock. I think those are the only things that were going through their mind. And she's like, I'm sure those were concerns, but do you think they had other feelings as well? Do you think that they were sad that their daughter was leaving the house and it wasn't how they imagined it, and so they weren't really mentally prepared for it, and that they just didn't know how to express that feeling, so they latched on to other reasons to kind of get you to stay? And I was like, I don't know, I guess maybe. Like, I didn't even think about that because I was always just butting heads with my parents, that I always just assumed the worst. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think that they would actually be sad about me leaving. I just thought they were annoyed that I wasn't doing it on their own terms, and that they actually hated me. Like, there was like a point in my life where I genuinely thought, like, I knew my parents loved me, but I also thought like they were just so annoyed of me, that I was their least favorite child, that I wasn't really lovable, and that they were forced to love me because I was their kid. You know what I mean? Like, it was very like I had very conflicted feelings about how my parents felt about me because of how much we butted heads. And so when she said that, I was like, oh damn, like, yeah, maybe that's what happened, because I know my parents are good people, but I don't know, just the way they would react to me or the things that they would say to me left me feeling otherwise sometimes, you know? So I was left thinking about that. More time had passed, and I was slowly starting to see how this letter had an impact on my parents, because our relationship started getting much better. I was able to actually talk to them about things without feeling I was like gonna get lectured. I felt like they were starting to trust me and my decisions. They were finally allowing me to just like be an adult and not try to control me anymore. And I could tell that they were really trying to let me go, which allowed me to want to come back to them and spend time with them and really like enjoy their presence. I could tell that they really started trusting me and my decisions and actually viewed me as an adult now. And then again, some more time passed, and this was like end of 2022 when my grandma had passed away, unfortunately. That's when I think I really understood the impact that letter had on my parents. My sister had actually suggested to everyone, including my parents, to write a letter to my grandma and put it in her casket, just saying any last words we wanted to say to her. And my parents actually agreed to do it, which I thought was surprising because it just didn't seem like something my parents would do. Like I said, they weren't very like openly emotional people. So I thought they would have thought writing a letter to my grandma would be like silly and dumb and like a waste of time. But surprisingly, like my parents agreed to it. And I remember my sister coming up to me being like, I think the whole reason they even agreed to write this letter is because of the letter you wrote to them. I think that had a major impact on them and made them understood the importance of words and actually saying how you feel to someone, because I don't think they would have done it otherwise. That was a moment it really hit me, the importance of sharing your feelings, especially with family, and just letting people know how much you mean to them. Because for me growing up, like I was so desperate for my parents' validation. I just wanted to be loved by them and make them proud so much, and I just felt like I never did that, especially because I was someone that wanted to live life on her own terms. So I was often left feeling like I wasn't good enough, you know, because I never really heard those words expressed to me. I think in that moment it really hit me that my parents probably felt the same way. Like I doubt anyone ever told them that they were proud of them or that they love them and that no matter what they do, they would always love them. I think my parents were also shown a very conditional type of love growing up, and I'm sure parenting in itself is very hard, especially when you have a daughter that you're constantly butting heads with and that's saying mean shit to you. You might think that you're failing as a parent or that you're not doing a good job. I'm getting emotional again, because I just keep picturing my parents as like little kids just not receiving that type of love that they deserved. Oh, I'm definitely gonna ruin my makeup. So yeah, I think me writing that letter gave them some type of validation that I don't even think they knew they were seeking, especially validation around being a good parent, because I'm sure that's something all parents think about but never really like express out loud. I think with brown parents especially, they get that type of validation from seeing their kids do good by, like, for example, getting good grades or having a really good career, buying a big house or whatever it is. Just seeing them successful in some ways gives them validation that they were good parents. I feel like they rarely think, oh, I actually need to hear them say that I'm a good parent. That would actually make a difference, because I don't think that was ever an option, right? Like, I don't think talking about your feelings was ever an option for them. So they sought out validation through like seeing you successful or seeing you gain material things or whatever it is. And I think sometimes that's why they can be so hard on us. They're just so protective over you and love you that when you're not doing the things that they think will bring you happiness, they get stressed out and they're worried and again just don't know how to express that level of concern and protection for you. So you just end up butting heads. And I think if you're a child in that situation, you need to understand that about your parents. And I think if you're a parent in that situation, you need to learn how to like let go and trust your kid a little bit more, and also trust yourself that you did a good job parenting them. And I say I don't think they knew that they were seeking that validation, because back when I wrote them the letter, their reaction just made me think that they didn't care about me saying all those things. They just didn't really have a reaction. So I was like, okay, obviously this doesn't matter. And now that time has passed and I've seen how much they've changed as people and how much they've grown, I realized it really did matter. Looking back at it, I understand now that change is slow, especially for someone like my parents, who have just been taught one way of life and one way of thinking, and who have never really been able to explore that emotional side of them. So to receive a letter like that, that have expressed a lot of like big feelings, can take some time to process and digest. And like I said, I saw that process of them understanding and digesting that information and really like implementing it into their lives and understanding how important it is to express your feelings happen throughout like the years. I think it's now been like 5 years since I wrote them that letter, and our relationship has drastically changed since then. I'm able to have so many more open conversations. They express their feelings a lot more. Like, the amount my parents have said that they're proud of us now is actually crazy. I never thought I'd see that day come, but like it's crazy. Like, obviously they don't say it all the time. They're not expressing their emotions all the time, but the fact that they're even saying it occasionally is just, it just shows so much progress, you know? So if you're having a hard time standing up to your parents and really getting through to them, maybe try to reassure them that they are good parents and that they need to trust that they've raised you to be a good adult that is smart and capable of making their own decisions, and that there are times that you just really need them to be supportive of you instead of trying to make decisions for you. Share that you understand that a lot of the things that they say are coming from a place of protection and love and because they want the best for you, but you still need to be able to make your own decisions and mistakes and be able to come back from those mistakes, because there's going to be a time where they're no longer there to be able to make those decisions for you and protect you. So you need to develop those skills now, so that you can be a full functioning adult. And you know, if something does happen and you need their help, you hope that they will still be willing to help you, because I feel like that is a parent's job, to always just be there for their kid. And then I think it's also really important that you take the time to emphasize the great skills, values, morals, characteristics that they have instilled in you that should help them feel comfortable with letting you go and being adult and making your own decisions. And trust me, I know a lot of those things are cringe to say. Like, that's why I wrote it in a letter and left it under my parents' pillow and left the house, because I honestly couldn't even look them in the face after telling them my emotions. Like, I so deeply understand that feeling of cringe and like ew and like that's so weird. That's just not something we do. But as I've gotten older, I've realized how important it is to have those conversations and what a big difference it makes, especially with like immigrant parents or really like traditional conservative parents that never grew up in an emotional environment. Like, they've never really been able to explore that emotional side of themselves and really open up. And that comes from a lot of like generational trauma, you know, especially with like immigrant parents, because they were constantly living in survival mode. They were just trying to make it in the country they immigrated to, you know, make sure that their family had enough food to eat and a roof over their head. And they were just doing their best to survive. So they really just did not have the capability to be able to explore that emotional side of themselves. And there's this one tweet that I think about all the time in relation to this by Bo Ren, and it says, "My parents were tasked with the job of survival and I with self-actualization. The immigrant generational gap is real. What a luxury it is to search for purpose, meaning, and fulfillment." And I think a lot of us that come from not just immigrant parents, but parents that are more conservative and traditional, or the ones that were just like really living in survival mode and that didn't have time to actually explore themselves and their purpose and what felt meaningful to them, really need to hear emotions expressed to them. And it's unfortunate that, you know, that's something that we crave so much ourselves and want from our parents so badly, and we have to be the ones to give it to them instead of actually like receiving it. But sometimes that's how you break the cycle. Being able to show them and teach them how to genuinely be able to show love and affection is so important, because I think it's a very new concept to a lot of them. It's never something that they were taught. And I know doing all of that can be cringe and feel really unfair, but the way I like to think about it is that my parents laid a really solid foundation for me to be stable and thrive, that I don't need to live in survival mode anymore. And so it is my job now to break free from that survival mode mentality. And just like my parents and many other parents improved the situation for the next generation, it is my job now to take on the task of improving the lives of the next generation by becoming a little bit more emotionally aware and developing healthy relationships. And that is also my way of giving back to my parents and showing them appreciation for all the hard work that they put in, because I really do think they deserve to feel it too. And I'm talking about parents that you know that genuinely like love and care for you and actively trying to show you love and care, but just don't know how to. Because I know there are parents out there that aren't willing to grow or hear you out or receive that type of love. Anyways, I just want to finish off by saying I wouldn't say everything in my relationship with my parents is perfect, but it has come a very, very long way. And I am so grateful and blessed to experience this you know, new relationship that we've cultivated. So I really hope it gives you guys hope to be able to cultivate that relationship with your parents too, while also standing up for yourself and doing the things that you want. And I hope this video gives you a little bit of a blueprint on how to have more effective, open, and honest conversations with your parents. Now, you guys already know the drill. This is the final look, and all the products that I used will be linked on my LTK. The link is in the description below. And if you have any topics you want me to cover or advice you want to ask for, feel free to let me know in the comments below or send me a DM on Instagram. Also, every week on my Instagram stories, I put up a question box asking you guys what you're struggling with so I can give you advice. So feel free to message me there too. If you did like this video, please do not forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel, and maybe share it with someone that needs to see it. As always, thank you so much for all the love and support you constantly show me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.